Hypocrite. 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 Hypocrite.
Well, I just watched Starlights video where they claimed that they were going to drag the enamel off of Tracy's teeth. I don't see it. I know one thing about Tracy and Laura that differ from Mandy Lynn and Hello Starlight and Steph is that they stand alone. They don't drag a group of people up to mass bully somebody, but I want to clear some things up. She brought up the spirit box video that Laura put up and left it up for about an hour before people got in her ass about it. She didn't bring she didn't play the whole thing out. She read it. There were some things in there where Laura brought up the murder case that my son Luke got life in prison for, which he deserves. He deserves that. They brought up a couple screenshots of a fake YouTube profile under BryanSt.John, which is my middle name, and that's a dox that somebody made. Then they brought up a picture of my wife at the time, my ex-wife at the time, which is a dox. And they brought up some of the stuff that was being said across the spirit box. They missed a very important point in there where they claimed that I molested my son, Luke. Well, these are the same people that say, oh, that was 2 years ago. When you bring up something that they do, that was 2 years ago. That was so long ago. Oh, forget that. Blah, 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 blah. Well, see, the thing of it is with me, when I go at someone or I'm having a disagreement with someone, one of the first things that they'll bring up is what my son did. That's when they don't have much else left to speak about. Left to, they'll bring up what my son did, which I'm not responsible for. And I think anybody in my situation where you have a child that's, or a family member that's committed a crime like that, and they're telling you that they're innocent, you're inclined to believe what they're saying until, they prove it. That spirit box said he blamed everybody but his son for what he did. I didn't blame anybody except for the people that were in that house. Now, Kelsey was there and he was telling us he didn't do it. And she left and came back a couple hours later, and that's when they found Brayden deceased. And I can tell you this, because people want to keep bringing this case up, and they want to keep bringing it up. Hello, Starlight did it. Sorry, she brought up the spirit box, which Laura took down. She brought it up. That's fine. I put the whole case, the whole trial up, and I watched the trial just like everyone else did. I learned more stuff just like everyone else did, because they kept the discovery under wraps in some of the clips of my son's interrogation I couldn't get a hold of until the trial. So up until the trial, I felt like he was innocent and that she was lying based on what I saw myself. There were times that I saw Brayden's mother be extremely harsh to Brayden and snap at him and, stuff like that, just like she was aggravated with him. But my son Luke never did that. She even testified in court that he's never put a hand on him. She said he doesn't even discipline him. She doesn't even raise his voice at him. That was put out for everybody to see, where she said that on the stand. And that's what I saw when I went over there all the time. Brayden called him daddy. Brayden would sit with him and not her. But there's a video. My son was an avid Patriots fan. And around that time, the Patriots went to the Super Bowl. He would stop anything that he was doing to watch the Patriots, anything Patriots. And they're having a little Super Bowl party, and they're filming it while the game is going on. Kelsey was gone somewhere, probably over to visit Brayden's dad, who was in prison for killing somebody. And he'll be getting out here soon. But you can see in this video, my son Luke is sitting there watching the game. You know, it's like one of the most important football games to him ever. And he's just watching the game, and Brayden's kind of running around being a kid, and he's kind of making a little bit of noise and having fun, you know, while these guys are watching the Super Bowl. And then they film, I put this video up, they film my son Luke sitting there, you know, and he's on the couch. And Brayden is on the back of the couch, just running back and forth right behind him, running back and forth across the top of the couch right behind him. You know, and personally, that would aggravate me. You know, right behind my neck while I'm trying to watch a game. You know, and Brady's just running back and forth, having fun, being cute. And my son Luke didn't say a thing. He didn't say, "Get off of there, leave me alone. I'm watching the game. Get down." Nothing. And then there's another video. There's another video where my son Ryan, Luke had a little boy named Ryan Jr. With Kelsey, which is Braden's brother. And I'm filming him. I'm filming the baby sitting there. And I'm standing with my son Luke. You can hear me talking to Luke. You can see Luke next to me. Then Brayden comes up beside me, and we're all looking at the baby. You know, and then my son Luke went off into another room somewhere, and I'm standing there with Brayden, and I'm talking to Brayden, and we're looking at the baby. And then Brayden realizes that Luke had walked out, and Brayden looks up and goes, "Where'd my daddy go? Where'd my daddy go?" And then he ran off. Daddy, daddy, daddy. Went after this. Yeah. Kids don't do that if there's anything, you know, going on. But Luke was not abused. Luke didn't hate Brayden. I think Luke lost his temper that day, and instead of admitting that he was overly rough with Brayden that it caused his death, he denied it. He denied it, and towards the middle of, I had my doubts, but I wanted to be loyal to my son. I had my doubts in the beginning. My first initial uh, thoughts on that, because I had been doing true crime for 10 or 11 years on here. I never went live or anything, but most of my cases that I would cover would be about kids who were harmed, like Molly's doing now. I covered a lot of Halo Stutzman, uh, uh, Cooper Ross, uh, you know, the Darley case, lots of kids that I would cover. And I was doing really well with it. And I was actually doing really well with the Darley case. There was nobody could touch me on that Darley case at all, based on facts and going to the scene and talking to the investigators and family members and all that. So I've been doing true crime based on children. Mostly they were all children that were harmed. Then my son does this, and it makes national news. So a lot of these people come after me because I've been advocating for kids, and I would speak out aggressively against people who did these types of things to children. So some of the people that came after me uh, in a very harsh way were Darla Routier supporters, based on, you know, what my son had done. It made national news. It was everywhere. And Tracy was part of that. There's one of the Darley supporters, uh, by the name of Stephanie Hopkins. She messaged me shortly after Luke was arrested. And she said, "Bryan, I know we don't like each other." She said, "But I'm going to tell you about this secret group, this secret chat that went on between some of the Darley supporters. Well, his son killed a baby, and how can we use this against him? And boy, we got him now." And Tracy was part of that. And then they put up a group about Brayden, you know, and I even asked them, you know, I would go in that group and I would argue with them. You know, they were also going after the mother, and I would argue with them. And one of my points was, you know, why are you even doing this? You're doing this to get back at me because of Darley, you know. "Oh, no, this is about a child and blah, blah, blah," you know. And I asked Tracy, I said, "Well, how many other Facebook groups do you have for children that were murdered?" And they didn't have any. But it kind of started there. TNT was involved in that too. TNT was also involved in, calling me. Yeah, I put up the video where she called and said, "I'm so sorry. I know Luke is innocent. Those people, blah blah." They all played me, all right, because it was popular. It was popular for people on Facebook and YouTube to come after somebody who had been advocating for children and going after children murderers for so long, and then their son turns out to be one. Can you just imagine how popular that was? But at any rate, I stood behind my son until they found him guilty. I would go back and forth with it. At first, my initial thought was he did it. He did it. I posted he did it. I know he did it. Blah blah blah. And Tracy also came to me and said, Bryan, you can't do that. You don't know what he's done. You don't know that he's not even been to court yet. So that was my initial thought, and I should have stuck with that. But at the same time, every time I go see him, it's like, Dad, I didn't do anything. I didn't do this, and blah blah blah. But I before court, I was pretty set that he did it. But I was like, well, what if he didn't? What if he didn't do it? And I'm sitting here telling him every time I go to see him, I'm telling him, hey, you just don't look right. They offered him deals. The first deal they offered him was if he pled out before trial, if he pled out to involuntary manslaughter, they would give him 11 years flat. And it's been 5 years. And I went up to the jail after the prosecutor was telling me that they were offering him the deal. And they called me up for like a pretrial thing, and I went and talked to him. And they said, well, we're offering him this deal, and we hope that you would try to talk to him so he'd take this deal. Because they really did not want to take this to trial. They felt like they had enough evidence to convict him, but they wanted to save the money and get the conviction. It cost about $750,000 to get him convicted after the trial. So I go up to the pretrial service, the pretrial thing, and I'm in there with the detective and both the DAs and Matt Heck and all of them down there, and they're saying, you need to have your son take this deal. And I went the fuck off on them. I said, you need to focus more on complete justice for this child. We have this court order that says that Kelsey is not allowed to be around this child, or not allowed to have Luke be around this child. Correct me. Yeah. There's a court order that said that Luke wasn't allowed to be around him at all because he had been accused before, along with another family member of him, of causing a concussion in 2015 on Brayden. So even though he was jailed for that, they let him go because they had insufficient evidence to prove that he had done anything. He was only with Brayden for 10 minutes. And Kelsey also told him that Brayden fell out of the crib. So they let him go on that. But Children's Services still opened a case, and they put an order on her, which I've posted that order before. Tracy's seen it. It said that Ryan Lucas St. John is not allowed around Brayden at all. And he would still, they moved in together. They went and got an apartment together. And everybody in both families knew that he wasn't supposed to be there. But everybody said, okay, if, we felt like Children's Services took it too far because they both said he fell out of the crib. They both said it. So we just said, okay, let them handle it. We didn't see any abuse. None of us on either side. And so I'm telling the DA, I said, we have this court order that says that Kelsey is not supposed to have him over there. Where is her charge? Because they didn't want to charge her. The reason they didn't want to charge her is because they knew that it would cause trouble for CPS, because CPS also knew Luke was living in the house. I'm telling you, I went over to visit them one time. Because to be quite honest with you, me and Luke we were selling lots of weed together, and he owed me a bunch of money, and I was going to drop him off some more weed. To be honest with you, that's exactly what was going on. We were selling a ton of weed. Marianne knows this. I've showed her. That was back then. Not now. I made a lot of money doing that. But I went over there to re up pick up one day and see we were just sitting around watching uh TV, and CPS knocked on the door, did one of them unannounced visits, and I was like, oh man. And when I heard they were at the door, Luke's like, don't worry about it. You know, and they come in and they look around the house. They said, oh, hi Luke, how you doing? You know, and then she looks around the house, makes sure everything's okay, and then bye Luke, see you later. And I'm looking at them like, don't they know he's not supposed to be? Yeah, but they don't care. So if they would have brought Kelsey up on charges, Kelsey would have proved that they knew he was there. But anyways, I get into it with the DA over that, and they want him to take the 11 years. And I said, well, I'll tell him. I said, but you guys don't have shit, really, blah, blah, blah. I got into it with him twice. So I go back up to the jail, and I visit him. I said, look, they're offering you 11 years, and he said he knew about it. I said, I think you should take that deal. And he said, no, I'm not going to take that deal. He said, I didn't do anything wrong. And I tried to tell him that he should take it. I said, you're going to jail no matter you did this or not. He wouldn't take it. And then they came back a couple months later and offered 15. And the third day of the trial, they offered him 20 flat, and he would not take these deals. So, but at any rate, here's the thing about Laura and Tracy. Sure, they came at me for that. People come at me for the trial and stuff during the trial who don't know anything about Brayden, who don't know what it's like to go through something like that. You tend to stand for your children. People come at me like that, but what they didn't do is pretend to be my friends, or actually be my friends, people that I liked and cared about, like Hello Starlight and Manda. I liked Manda at one point. I still like her a little bit. She's kind of funny, and she's not as cruel as the rest of them. You know, lots of my friends, you know, when Lanky tool, when Full On Drama went real life on me and sent CPS over to my house, told everybody she sent CPS over to my house, put videos up about sending CPS over to my house. My friends found her interesting and went over to them. That's what Laura and Tracy didn't do. They didn't shit on any of their friends for somebody who went after their family. Two different people who went after my family that they're sucking ass to right now. That's what they didn't do. So I have the ability to forgive people. It's you know, that's an ability that some people around here don't have. So Laura put up a spirit box, and we went back at each other. I went back at her hard over that. And so what? At this point, so what? Because the ability to forgive people is an amazing quality to have. Like I forgive full on drama. But I don't forgive people who pretend, who are like dogs, you know, who are licking your hand and pissing on your leg at the same fucking time. I don't forgive them, but I like Hello Starlight makes little jabs at me, and I see them, and you know, but she knows that I'm not going to come back at her. I don't. I'm not going to. I'm not going to give her that benefit of coming back at her that way. So she can jab at me all she wants. You know, I'm not going to come back at her. Period. And I promised her that, and I've stuck to that. She does little stupid things, you know. It makes her little remarks, but you know, she gets a pass. Just like you know, she gets a pass. But I'm just going to put it like this quickly, and I'm going to leave it be. Tracy never pretended to be my friend. Neither did Laura. They did what they did, and they're forgiven for it. Period. This is a long time ago. Anybody who brings up that trial, anybody who brings up Brayden and his death, anybody for any reason is guilty. Because his little 2-year-old life and his end of his life, he wasn't here for people to bring up his death in order to get at me or to bring light to someone who got at me because of his death. Anybody who brings it up is shady as fuck. Anybody. None of you knew Brayden. There's no one on YouTube that ever saw him. No one. I'm pretty sure he'd be disgusted with anybody who used his name in any sort of revengeful type of way. Anybody. And when I wouldn't respond to these people like TNT or putting Facebook groups out there to get at me, to get my response, when I didn't respond to them, they made up fake Facebook profiles and made it look like I was responding. And I wasn't. I was not responding to them. And she's admitted this. But I'm here to tell you, anybody who uses Brayden's name in any way other than to tribute his life is guilty. Now, Amanda Lynn sat up there and told something that wasn't correct either. There was a live that Amanda Lynn did when she first started doing lives. And I kind of, we're from the same area. And we were talking about, she was talking about her dad being locked up and stuff like that. And she said where he was locked up at the Training Institute of Central Ohio, TICO, which is one of the roughest juvenile prisons in Ohio. It was so bad that they've closed it down. They were killing kids in there. I mean, it was worth. I've been to juvenile penitentiary and I've been to adult penitentiary, and that juvenile penitentiary was the worst. And we got to talking about how bad TICO was. And she said, yeah, my dad was there. And I asked her what years he was there. And it was the same years that I was there, but it was a big place. And I said, well, I may have crossed his path. I said, I probably know him. And she goes, oh, yeah, well, I'll talk to him about it, blah, blah, blah. But I never told her I know him. And I never threatened to dox him. She got that all mixed up. I just said we were locked down in the same place at the same time. And as far as the email of her son, Amanda, if you want me to share the emails between you and I, because I never had a clip of it, but if you want me to share the emails between you and I about that situation where you just kind of quit talking about it after I showed you something, I'll do that. But I never threatened to dox your dad. And you were saying that your husband never gets on the internet, and we had the same email that you use that was being used in this discussion with a 16. It was a 16-year-old kid. You corrected me on the ages, but I never threatened to dox you. You've never bothered me enough to want to dox you. None of you have, really. I'll dox people that go real life on me, or people that mess around talking about my wife or something like that when I've asked them to stop. None of you have bothered me enough to do that. But let's talk about loyalty, because that's what I am. I'm a good person to know when it comes to loyalty. And right now, I don't agree with what Laura said. I don't agree with a lot of things that Laura says. She shouldn't have said that about his child, but I can understand impulse and impulse control. She shouldn't have said that. But even look at what Negs wants to do, okay? He since I spoke up and gave my opinion of what Laura said, he comes at me and he wants to throw little pokes at me. And what's the first thing he gonna do about somebody who spoke on his deceased child? He's gonna dig up another deceased child. That's what he wants to do. It's pathetic. The whole thing is pathetic around here. And I've already got all Negs stuff. He's not saying anything about me, so he said what he had to say, so whatever. But me and Negs are fairly close to each other. If Negs wants to say anything to me, I'll be glad to have a beer with you, bro. But let's just keep it loyal. I would appreciate it if people would stop talking about Brayden in any way, shape, or form. Oh, look what Laura did. She said something about Brayden. No one should be talking about him. He's gone. No one should be talking about him. If anybody has anything to say about Brayden or his death or his murder, the JPay system is up and running. Because I didn't do it. I didn't want it done. And that's my son. Period.